This video is a thank you video to the more than 1,000 people so far who have subscribed to the Oberlin Violin Studio YouTube channel. I have been just blown away by all the positive feedback you've been giving about these tutorials, the beginner series, and the perfect position checklist that many of you have downloaded. But also, I have been loving the personal stories that you've been sharing with me about your violin journey. And without mentioning any names, of course, for privacy, I wanted to give you a sense of how worldwide this is right now. Okay, so I've been exchanging emails now with a Suzuki mom in Iceland, a 78-year-old gentleman in Hungary, a 19-year-old in India, a high school student in Australia, a lady who it turns out lives not far from me at all, a 75-year-old who took some lessons as a child, had to stop, and is finally getting back into it, and, I love this, a gentleman in Taiwan who started violin 2 months ago and wrote sort of apologetically that he rarely practices more than 2 hours a day. Sir, you know who you are. I am very impressed. And lots more emails besides these. But I just wanted to say, how cool is that, right? That so many people around the world and of so many different ages all have in common the love of music and the desire to learn to play the violin. That's something really special. So as a thank you, in this video, I'm going to go through some of the questions that I've been receiving and answer as many of those as possible in this video format so that you can actually see a demonstration on the violin, and I'll share with you some suggestions and exercises for practice. If you don't already know, my name is Jessica Oberlin, and this is Oberlin Violin Studio. So first, a couple of people reached out about having trouble crossing strings cleanly. So I have an entire YouTube video all about how to pivot your arm in order to cross the strings cleanly. So I will put that somewhere on your screen, wherever that card goes, and put a link in the description as well to that pivoting video. But I also wanted to add a couple of bow exercises that can also really help you with this. So the first thing is making sure that you're setting your fingers before you play them. So let's imagine that we're playing a 1 on the A string and then a 3 on the D string. Now, our brains tend to think, okay, I'm going from this note to this note, and everything for that second note is happening all at the same time because it's the second note. But there are actually 3 different things happening here mechanically with our position. So we have the 1. Okay, then 1, our 3 goes down. 2, we pivot to the next string. And 3, we play that note. So let's practice an exercise. If you were watching the video about how to play an A major scale, your very first scale you learn on the violin, let's work on going down that scale. So we're going to start with 3 on the E string, 2, set your 1 before you play with your bow, lift your 1 to play open. Okay, now we're coming to a string change. So multiple things have to happen. Our 3 goes down on the A, we pivot to the A, including your elbow, and then you play that note. And so forth. Let's try an exercise still using that A major scale. So we're going to play that E again, up bow. Freeze with your bow, set your 3, pivot your bow. But now what I want you to do is minimize the time lag between your 3 going down and your bow pivoting, but still waiting to play that next note. So we're gonna go open E, stop everything, finger goes down, pivot, as fast as you can. Finger goes down, pivot, but not playing yet, and then play the note. Okay, so again, and just continue minimizing all of those spaces, but still separating all of the muscle movements. So up bow E, finger goes down, pivot as fast as you can. until you can play it so smoothly that even though those muscle movements are still happening in sequence, they're just happening so quickly that you can't really tell anymore. I have an adult student right now who's working on a Vivaldi concerto. She started less than a year ago, so I'm super proud of her progress. When she plays this part, that's a lot of string crossings, and there's a whole page full of them, just like that. Well, it often sounds like this, right? And that's because, again, the finger setting, the pivoting has to come first before we actually play the note. So we were actually just working on this in a lesson today. And what we were doing was playing 1, 3, freeze, pivot. Freeze, pivot. And so what we're doing in that exercise is practicing getting to that next string really quickly, but not playing it immediately until we're all the way there. And that will actually help you train your muscles to practice that pivoting really quickly so that you can do that with ease. Second question, kind of paraphrasing here, somebody said, why does my bow bounce when I don't want it to? Okay, so this could be as simple as nerves. I remember many a recital where I, maybe even felt like I knew the music. I wasn't necessarily freaking out in my head or anything, but my autonomic nervous system or whatever was so keyed up that when I would play a long note, it just would start bouncing. So there are a couple of things that cause that unintended bow bounce. One of them is that you're gripping the bow really hard. So if you were trying to play spiccato as a more advanced technique, you actually have to have your thumb more engaged in the bow than you would if you were just playing a long note. And so if you accidentally have your thumb kind of pressing upward, and maybe you don't really realize you're doing that, it's just you have kind of this grip on the bow, your bow, if it's pretty responsive, will start to bounce, even though you don't mean it to. So instead, I encourage you to practice just getting into the string more and feeling the weight of your arm going through that string like a knife cutting into a warm stick of butter. Next, someone says, I'm trying to get away from looking/watching YouTube tabs for playing. Yes, excellent, good. No more violin tabs. I'd actually never seen a violin tab until fairly recently because it's just such a strange concept as a violinist. Now, it might get you somewhere in guitar where you're strumming the same chord for 5 measures while you sing something. Okay, fine. But for a violin as a melodic instrument, in order to play anything quickly, those tabs have to be flicking through the screen so fast that it would be very difficult to follow along and play any of them. Also, it does not encourage you to read ahead in the music and to know what's coming next or to see the musical patterns the same way that you do when you learn to sight read music. That will give you such an edge because you learn to see things in bigger chunks that make sight reading easier. But lots more on that in a future sight reading video. So I am proud of the person who wrote that comment who is trying to get away from violin tabs, and you will never see violin tabs in any of my tutorial videos. Okay, similarly, someone says sight reading is out for me. Yeah, people get really intimidated by sight reading, and I am convinced at this point that it's because most of us have learned to sight read all wrong. We approach it like an engineering problem where something has to be decoded. Every good boy does fine. And we learn these shortcuts that have us translating so many steps in our head that no wonder our sight reading is really slow and really frustrating. So again, watch out for that future video. Make sure you have your notifications turned on or that you're on my email list to know when that video comes out, because I have what I think is a much better, much more natural, much easier, and much faster way to learn to sight read music. Next, is there a good shoulder rest that you recommend? Yes. For most students, a Kuhn bar is a great place to start. It's probably the most popular violin shoulder bar, shoulder rest, shoulder bar, same thing. And if you watch my violin position video where I show you how to adjust both sides of it, and you do that arm drop check to make sure that your shoulder bar is working well for your body, and you still find that it's uncomfortable and not working, then you might want to experiment with some different shoulder bars, and there are lots of them. Personally, I use this one. It's called a Wolf Forte Primo. Sometimes you can find it on Amazon, or you could try the Char catalog or a place like that, music store. But this one I just find works well for me. Lastly, another person asked about nerves while performing. So the best thing that you can do to overcome nervousness when you're performing, whether you're playing in a concert hall or you're just get nervous performing for friends or at church or at a local bar or whatever, if you feel nervous while you're playing, the best thing you can do is to practice performing, which kind of makes sense. So what I recommend is for the couple of weeks or so leading up to the concert, performance, whatever it is, see if you can play your piece in front of a different person every day. See, what happens when we play in front of other people is that it's like we go into a different mind state, right? Our cortisol levels rise. We're on this fight or flight kind of higher energy level. Everything is suddenly in high definition, and we are playing, and it feels different, totally different than it felt at home or in the practice room. And suddenly you discover there were parts of the music you literally never messed up before, and you just can't even remember how that part goes. So this is important. When that happens in this performance practice leading up to the real thing, don't go, "Oh, I'm so bad. I don't know how to play violin." Instead, I want you to think of it like fishing. Ooh, I got another one. Ooh, I found another weak spot. Aha! And you go back and you practice, like you just won a little prize almost. It's a little mental shift that I find to be extremely helpful. So instead of being down on yourself, you're going to go, "Yay, I found another one." You're going to practice that spot, make sure that you really know it, that you know what comes before that section and after that section so that you don't get lost there again. And then the next day, you go play it for somebody else, and maybe you find some more spots. And you'll find over the course of those couple of weeks or so that by the time you're playing it in the concert, you are so much more confident than you would have been otherwise, and it's much less likely that you're going to get thrown off by being in that elevated mental state. So I'm going to stop there for this video. Again, thank you so much to all of the subscribers who helped break this 1,000 subscriber YouTube milestone. And I hope that you share it with other people who might benefit from the free tutorials and resources that are offered here. I have a goal to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I know. A little crazy, but yes, there, I've said it. So anyway, I hope these tips help you to share something beautiful with your music, and I'll see you in the next video.